Welcome to That's Joy, the podcast. I'm your host, Cece Calbanero, and I'll be sharing stories of miracles, God moments, and unpacking the truth behind what joy truly means. My friend, when God gives you a direct call on your life, be sure to answer it. Here's to answering my call together. Hello and welcome back to That's Joy. If you are a return listener, can I just give you a hug through this mic right now? Because that's what I want to do. Thank you for continuing to plug in and just being here. And if this is your first time plugging in, my goodness, what an honor it is to have you here. I don't take time lightly. And so I am just so grateful that you are taking your personal time to plug in to hopefully a message that will bring you joy. And I believe that this episode today is going to do exactly that. But y'all know that we love kicking off every single episode with a little joyful noise. Joyful noise is our version of good news. We hear enough of the opposite, quite literally everywhere. And so I think it's just so important to take time away to highlight what are the good things that are happening in this world, because I can almost promise you and bet that there's a lot more of it than you think. So today we actually had a follower write in. Our sister Britt has shared a little joyful noise with us, and I want to read it to you. She said, "This month, I was finally baptized at 30 years old after giving my life to Christ in April of this year. Because of trauma in my childhood and teen years, I spent a lot of my youth recklessly, and for years, I had this thought that I wasn't going to make it to my 30th birthday. It is not a coincidence that I found Jesus 3 months before I turned 30. That was a God thing, and I thank Him every single day for not giving up on me. That's my joyful noise this month." My goodness, Britt, that is some joyful noise that can runneth over for the next year, even beyond just a month. That is incredible. And I'm so, so grateful that you chose to listen to the nudge in your heart, to submit that, to write it in, to be vulnerable. Friends, if you have something that you want to share, if you're like, dang, I just experienced this God moment and I can't shake it, I can't stop thinking about it, maybe that's the exact nudge that you need to submit it. Literally, all you have to do is shoot me a DM on our podcast Instagram account at That's Joy the Podcast, and I'll take note of it and I might share yours on the next episode. So how cool that we get to celebrate each other's wins and hear about the ways that God is moving in and through each of us. Y'all, today's episode though, oh my gosh, this episode is going to have you just, I think, smiling from ear to ear, laughing a little, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get those tear ducts going a little bit. I mean, Amanda has been such a joy from the moment that we met. I even knew her as an online friend prior to us meeting in person, but I share all of this about how we met and the joys of it all on the app. So without further ado, let's just dive in to today's new episode. You guys, the moment is here. I am so excited to be inviting Amanda on the podcast today. We had the joy and the opportunity of meeting, gosh, it feels like yesterday. It also feels like 4 months ago. I'm confused. It was the first weekend of October where we got to meet at the Say Grace conference in Dallas. And I remember seeing Amanda's stuff on social and I was like, she is so creative. But then when you meet her in person, everything just gets elevated. And so I am so excited. I'm so excited for y'all to get to know her too. So Amanda, welcome to That's Joy. I am so excited to have you here.
Yay, thank you, Cece. I'm really excited about chatting with you about all the things, so it's going to be good.
Yes. Okay. For those of the peeps who may not know who you are, who is Amanda and how did she find God?
Yeah, so hi, my name is Amanda. I am a physical therapist. I'm a calligraphy artist. I'm a wife. I've been married to my husband for about 4 years now, going on 5. Um, so a few days a week, I am treating patients in the hospital or the outpatient setting. And then the other days, I'm working on my personal business, Amanda Reid Designs, where I do modern calligraphy for brands and engraving for brands and events. And then I teach fun calligraphy workshop experiences. So that's what I
So
do.
cool. So cool. I mean, I'm like,
Yeah.
she does it all, y'all. She does it all.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
Yeah. I guess about how I found God. Um,
totally.
so I grew up in the church. My parents are ministers, and I grew up in like a Pentecostal church in Houston, Texas. So I found the Lord at a very young age. I think about like my children's church experience, like our church, they weren't playing games. Like I know like a lot of churches, like the children's church, they tell the cute little Bible stories. Girl, we were talking about the gifts of the spirit, laying hands on each other, like we
Come
were in
on.
it. So I feel like that experience from a young age really set like a foundation for having a relationship with God pretty early for me. That really carried into like high school, college, and even my adult years. And so I feel like that was like a huge blessing. But yeah, that's kind of my upbringing. I think I
Yeah.
got baptized at like 8 years old.
Oh, no
So
way.
yeah.
Oh my gosh,
So like,
so little. I love that so much.
yeah. We had this church play, and
Yeah.
I forgot the name of the play, but it was like one of those convicting ones where it's like, oh my gosh, I need the Lord.
We
And
love
so
those ones.
yeah, so afterwards I told my parents like I want to be saved, I want to get baptized. So I got baptized that night.
Wow, come on.
Yeah.
I think what I admire so much about you sharing that too is I feel like in today's world, we hear so many stories where people get baptized at such a young age, but then they fall away from the church or they fall away
Mm-hmm.
from their relationship with God. But it sounds to me that you have just been steadfast in your faith from that moment on. And of course, that doesn't mean you didn't face trials and tribulation, but
Right.
I think that there's so much to admire about that steadfast faith, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so good.
I feel like that's really such a blessing, and not that I struggled with that reality, but sometimes you meet people and they have like this crazy testimony about how they came to the Lord, or they were all in the world, they were doing this and that, and then they had their aha moment. And I
Yeah.
was like, God, I never had that. you know, and it made me feel like, if someone was a new believer, or they may have had that experience and then they're coming to me, it was like, I can't relate to your situation, but like I always felt like I didn't want to come off as like a goody two shoe or something like that. So that's something that I have dealt with. But, now that I'm older, I realize that it is a blessing that, God has shielded me from a lot of things and has sustained my relationship with Him over time. So it's, nothing to be ashamed of.
Totally. And I so appreciate you sharing that because I just know that I know someone's on the other side of this listening right now and they're like, may have been bummed that they didn't have this aha moment. But now, even just
Yeah.
you sharing that, like they see themselves in that too. So I think it's cool how no matter where and how you find God, there is a unique way and there's a purpose beyond what you'll ever know. And let's not go preaching yet because we still have a lot of questions. So,
Girl.
I'm like, calm it down, calm it down.
Yes. Bring it
Um,
down.
exactly. Just to give you guys a little background too, this is how our whole weekend was, it feels like, where we would just be going off. And so,
Yes.
anyhow, we're going to try our best to stay on track here.
We'll try to keep it under control,
Exactly.
because
Exactly.
sometimes it just gets too good.
It does. And you don't want to stop that flow.
You know,
Okay, Amanda. So Amanda and I, like I said, met at Say Grace at the top of the month, and we got to actually sit on the same panel too. So we got to speak on the topic of focus. And one of my favorite things from just our time together was sitting next to Amanda in front of this group of women and turning and then watching her speak. And there was something so beautiful about like the both of us sitting up there and our spiritual gifting standing side by side that I feel
yeah.
like was just such a, I call these moments like a bookmark moment where I'm like, man, I won't forget that. Like that was just
Mm,
such a special moment that I just won't forget. And quite honestly, I remember turning and I was like, man, her spiritual maturity is just so, like, I admire it so much. And
wow.
I just think that the way that you walk, the way that you live your life, and the way that you speak is such a beautiful example of the scripture that says a peace that surpasses all understanding, right? In
That's what it
Philippians.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure, and I can't wait for you to dive into that more, but I'm like, man, what have you always just lived with, like, that level of peace, and what did it take to mentally get to the place of where you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm gonna say yes and no. I'll
Okay.
say yes, I've had access to this peace, most of my life, especially being connected to God from a young age, but I don't always feel it being there.
Yeah.
But I definitely believe that it is a gift from God that He has given to me to especially be for other people.
Mm,
So, like if someone is dealing with a lot, then, I show up and I can be present for someone to just kind of like either help calm them down or just help them focus on, where they're at and to just, redirect towards the Lord. Um, but I think that that comes from being intentional about like how you live your life. So like for me, I don't like chaos. I do not like chaos.
we don't
It's
like
something
her.
we don't like her at all. Like she can go. Um, but like things that just cause anxiety are things that I tend to stay away from.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I feel like an anxious person, but you know, usually when I'm not feeling like that peace or like joy in a season, it's usually during times when I'm not connected to God.
Mhm.
And I think that me being mindful of like staying away from like unnecessary stress or drama and truly guarding your heart is key. So it's like, what am I feeding my spirit in this season? Like, what am I watching on TV or movies? What music am I listening to? Like, who am I surrounding myself with? Girl, sometimes, so I like to watch, some trash TV sometimes.
Girl, we all got our guilty pleasure.
Yes,
Same.
that's my guilty pleasure. And it's bad. It's bad because like, well, not bad, but sometimes I'll be watching like, a season of some show. I'm not going to name any shows, but like I'll find myself like however the characters in that show are acting, like I find myself acting like that. And my husband Matthew would be like, girl, what is going on? Like, where's the attitude coming from? Like this terminology that this is not your vocabulary. Like, why are you saying this type of thing?
That's
And
amazing.
it's like, I'm sorry, I've been watching this season of these women that are just doing the most. And I just, so I think like really being intentional about what you feed your spirit, you know, shows up in your life as well.
Totally. Yeah.
So
That's so important because I remember a couple years back, even with social media, like that. Didn't you speak on that? The mute button?
girl,
Okay, go there real quick. Go there real
that
quick.
mute button is a gift from God. For me in particular, especially on social media, I have to use the mute button when it comes to comparison,
Mm,
especially when you're following other people that are in your field or doing something that you're doing or want to be doing. It's very easy to compare like my gifts, my skills, my lifestyle to what other people are, sharing. Instagram is a highlight reel. I'm not, we're not all sharing the good and the bad, like our
totally.
mundane everyday lives. And so it's really easy to, see something and then desire it. And I feel like the Lord has kind of been teaching me that, along the lines of guard our heart, there's I don't remember what scripture it is, but it talks about like the lust of the eyes, or
Mm,
you just start to desire things that you see, like if
yeah.
I didn't know that a certain lifestyle was available, if I see it, then I could be desiring that. And if
Right,
that's something I'm
right.
feeding myself all the time when I'm constantly scrolling or following people, then that could be a hindrance. And so I
Totally.
muting people if I found myself either comparing myself to them or feeling like I had to live a certain lifestyle to be like a certain aesthetic or whatever. It's like, this is not real. Life is not a whole aesthetic. Everyone's talking about romanticizing their life. And yes, it's good to be grateful for the things that you have, but I shouldn't feel like I have to live my life on display, or, you know, compare to what other people are doing. So that mute button is
Totally.
real.
Come on, come on. If you learn nothing
Yeah.
else from this episode, the
Get
power
that
of the
mute
mute button.
button. Yes.
It's
It'll bless
real.
your life.
I love that so much too, because you said feed your soul, and there's so much to that. Like that could be a whole episode in itself. But my plants, like this figgy girl back here, I think she
Hmm.
needs a little water and she's drooping a little bit. But she's been teaching me so much about what it looks like to just like do the things that you can do, and then God controls the growth. And I think
Yeah.
that the mindfulness of like, okay, am I putting this tree by the door where it gets pure light exposure
Yeah.
X amount of times per week?
Hmm.
Am I doing those little things like this one right here? I'm going to show you. I don't know the name of this little plant right here.
Oh, it's a cute one.
He was drooping like a couple days
Uh-oh.
ago. Like I was like, am I gonna have to toss her soon? Put her a little water, put it right in front of the light. And sure
Yeah.
enough, what happens? Like it's standing up, and these leaves, y'all,
Hmm.
if you're not watching on video, like these leaves are standing up tall again. And it's
Yeah.
just such a beautiful picture of like his creation. Like we are
Hmm.
so similar, but even better. And I think so
Yeah.
much of that by the opportunity of like the things that we do get to control. We do get to tell our minds, like, okay, am I putting myself in a position of light right now? Or
Hmm.
am I putting myself in a position of darkness? And maybe that darkness does look like people on social who make you feel like you're less than, or like toxic TV shows, which I'm guilty of as well, like that just
Yeah.
don't feed our souls with the things that we know that we need. And I just
Exactly.
so appreciate you sharing that in vulnerability, because again, there is someone listening who's like, dang, me too, like
Hmm.
so not alone. So I
Yeah.
love that so much.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of plants, I was reading. So you showed your plants. I'm gonna show mine.
Show the plants, girl.
This is mine.
Yes.
This is no. This is my drama queen plant. This is the one that has been giving me the most issues. Like you see this?
Yeah.
Like we're working on her. Okay. I got some new plant food and stuff to help doctor her up. But as I was learning about, like, I have this book about plants. And a quote that stood out to me is, so this is a like a golden pothos,
Okay.
and it was talking about how like they can tolerate low light
Mm,
environments or situations. And that's why people will have these types of plants like in their office where you may be in a cubicle, you're not next to like a bright window or something, but there's a fluorescent lights or whatever. So
yeah.
they won't necessarily die, but they won't thrive.
Mm,
And I think that, well, first of all, this plant was like in that back corner over there.
yeah.
So like the furthest position away from the window, which is like right here. So I think just kind of, with the whole plant analogy, like, you were mentioning how, like, are we living in light or living in darkness? And just because you may not necessarily like die because you're living in the darkness or you're not in optimal light, like the closer that you are to that light, the more that you will thrive. So like, why wouldn't you put yourself in the best position to be successful and to live the life that you were called to live, instead of like settling for either mediocre or like a situation where you're not able to get like the spiritual nourishing that you deserve or really require. God called us to be children of the light. And if I'm trying to get by living in a tolerable situation, like an office vibe that, is a fluorescent light, but that's not what I was called to grow in, why would I put myself through that?
Come on. That is so good. That is so freaking good. I'm like, all
Girl,
right, y'all we're
come on,
ready.
plants.
Come on,
Come
plants.
on,
Teach us
plants.
something. But that, like, we were not called just to survive. We were called to thrive, to literally
Yes.
thrive. And you are just like bearing the fruit of that, you know, like so many
Hmm.
different aspects of your life, you are living that out and it is so evident. And I think
Yeah.
that's the coolest thing to see is like right now, like do a revision, y'all, of who you're following. Like, do they
Hmm.
spark that light? And if they
Yeah.
don't, hit the mute button. And if you gotta hit the unfollow, hit the unfollow, but
Hit
do
that
what you
unfollow.
need. Right. Like do what you need to do to position yourself closer to the light. That's so good.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Love it.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to talk about too, like, is what you get to do. So we were driving, y'all, and sweet Amanda, I didn't have a car. I flew in. And so we had these different locations, kind of like all over Dallas. I don't know if y'all have
Yeah.
ever been in Dallas, but she big. Okay. She's like an hour everywhere.
Too
Um,
much. Too much.
too
It's
much.
not for me.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm so grateful because she would pick me up from the hotel and then we'd go together to the next locations and stuff. And there was something in the car where I just was like, what the heck? Like, I don't even know how to shake it right now, but I can't help but share it with you. And I began to
Mm.
tell Amanda, I'm like, I don't know what it is, but I just feel safe. Like, I feel like the Lord is
Mm.
just highlighting the word safe to me about you. And
Wow.
that is such a gift because I think as women, even our one of our greatest longings is to just feel safe with our future
Yeah.
husband and in our homes. Like that's what we really want and desire. And there was something about being around you where I was like, I feel like nothing can touch us right now. Like,
Mm.
I don't know what
Ooh,
it is, but it's like, come on, angels, they're swarming around
yes, that's the
wherever
Holy
you are
Spirit.
or something. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so, I think that that was such a beautiful picture that God allowed me to feel that when I was with you because it translated as I was thinking of questions to ask you. I was like, whoa, what she does and what God is calling her to do is be in two different, very unique positions where she
Mm.
allows people on the other end to also feel safe too. And
Yeah.
so I just want you to kind of speak to the two like majorly different outlets that you get to call work and what
Hmm.
it has looked like to like curate this safe place and really carry out your God-given gifts in that.
Yeah. Well, first I want to say this just came to me as you were talking about like well, one, if people don't know, driving in Dallas
Is
is on
cray.
another it's on another level. Like
It's like LA,
I
honestly.
it's girl, it's a hot mess. I feel like I could not live in Dallas because of the driving situation.
Real.
But I was just thinking like when you said that, like it is it is such a blessing to be able to go through life and feel safe
Mm,
because, depending on, your current situation or how you grew up, we may not always feel that way. And so, you know, it's like when you trust God to carry your life and to guide your steps, like just the peace that comes with that, knowing that I don't have to be in control. I don't have to manipulate things, like to just like sit back and let him take control of the wheel. Like that feels so good.
yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
glad that you felt that with me in the car because while you
No,
were feeling safer, I was like, okay, y'all don't hit me.
you were so
No.
poised though. And so I think that's what it was. You were surrendering and you didn't even
Oh.
fully know it, you know?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. But to answer your question about like how does that come about like in my work, I feel like I see that mostly when I'm working in the hospital. So I work at a level 2 trauma center in my local area, and pretty much what that means is we see some crazy things coming through.
Mm,
So I'll see patients like after they have surgery, after traumatic accidents or car accidents, motorcycle accidents, after people have a stroke or heart surgery. And pretty much my job is to assess their mobility, see if they can get in and out of bed, sometimes teaching people how to walk again. and determining if they're safe to go home or if they need to go to like a rehab facility or something like that. And especially for my patients that have been in like a trauma situation or an accident, I think that like one, they're in a lot of pain, and two, they're very scared about what's going on or what's going to happen next. Are they going to be stuck like this forever? Sometimes, you know, they may have some like a lot of broken bones or like some serious injuries.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like my job, and I feel like God has graced me to do this, is to reassure them that this is temporary,
Mm,
which is very hard to see when you've been in the hospital for a few days and it's like, am I going to be able to get up off of this bed? Am I going to be able to walk again? Like, I've got pins sticking out of my legs, or, I just had back surgery. Like, is my life going to get back to normal? And being able to be that person to reassure them that this is temporary. It feels like you're not going to be able to do the
yeah.
things that you're doing before. But one, our bodies have the ability to heal,
Come
right?
on.
And so, like God gave us that ability for our muscles to regenerate whenever we exercise them, or our bones, they start to strengthen up over time and heal if we give them the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and just being able to give them strategies to adapt to their current situation. And I feel like one of the what really clicks with people and that really gives them peace is knowing that this is temporary, so that they have something to look forward to. Like, okay, I'm not going to be here forever. If I can just get through this season right now, I'll be okay once this passes.
Mm,
And I think it's also important to make sure that they have like community or family or people that are around them to help them get through that season. Sometimes it is a sad situation where people come in and they don't have any family that, are near, or, they might live somewhere else, or, they don't have any family around them that are left to help out. So those are always tough situations, but the people that tend to recover better is when they have good social support and good community. So all of that really factors in. So
wow. That's really good.
I know that was a lot, but
No, I
that's my
think
job.
that no, that's your job. And I appreciate you sharing all the details of that. Cause as you were kind of speaking, I just thought about the girl or maybe the guy listening to this right now. And it isn't a physical wound that they're
Yeah.
walking through, but it's like such an emotional one, such a mental
Mm,
one where they might be in the same position of, is this ever going to end? Am I ever going to get to a place where I feel quote unquote normal again? And
yeah.
everything, friend listening to this right now, like I just need you to reverse it 2 minutes and hear back everything that she just said about a patient who walks in with a physical wound, and know that that very much applies to you walking through a mental season where it feels really hard, or maybe an emotional
Mm,
season where it feels really hard, because God heals. He
yes.
heals. And so,
Yes, he
no
does.
matter what it is, whether it's in our minds, in our hearts, or in a physical part of our body, just beginning to believe and have the faith and increasing your faith and saying, you know what, God, I'm going to choose to believe that this is just a season. This is not
Mm,
my story, and I do not have to stay here. And so, I
yeah.
just so admire you sharing that, because I'm like, man, if only we just knew, right? If we just got in contact with a doctor, right? Like Amanda's
Yeah.
educating these people in this space, like, hey, you don't got to stay here. In the same
Yeah.
breath, I'm like, angels are swarming. God is laying his hand on you and saying, hey, you don't have to stay here, you know?
Wow.
Like, that's just such a beautiful picture. And I'm like, getting Holy Spirit chills, almost wanting to cry, thinking about like,
Girl, me too.
I
Like trying to hold it together. I'm like, wow, that is such good truth. Like, I think about how many people don't make it to the hospital,
mm,
or they, if they don't have insurance or something, they feel like they can't come. And so they're trying to like recover from an injury on their own. Or, just something happens where, they might come to us and I'm like, you're not safe to go home. Like, you need to go to a rehab facility so we can really like get you to your optimal level of function. They're like, no, I just want to get back to my house. I can do it on my own, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes people don't want the help, and
Mm.
that's equally as sad too. But if you're able to like help people understand that, some things you need to get assistance with, and it's
Yeah.
okay to get that help, or to have someone walk with you through this, or who has been through it before. Like sometimes we'll have patients who are like a new amputee for whatever reason, so they've lost a limb. Like it is very traumatic to lose like a body part, and then figuring out like, how am I going to do life now? And like the number one thing that we tell them is to get in a support group of other people who have gone through the same thing that you've gone through, and are now living a new life with their current situation, because the old you
Yeah.
is gone. Like,
Yeah. Come
honey, that
on.
leg is gone. It's not coming. But there is
Oh my
new life in a prosthetic, honey, and we can teach you how to move through life in this new situation. You know what I'm saying? And so, like,
Amen.
sometimes people try to hold on to the idea of like this past lifestyle, and they want the old them back. But there's so much more that can come from, where you are now. It may not be ideal, but it's really up to you to make a good situation out of a bad one. Anything can be turned around.
Come
Anything can
on.
be turned around. So
That's it right there.
yeah.
So good. And the coolest thing too, once you guys do your fair share of stalking Amanda after this, you're going to come to find that you don't even know that you're a doctor. Like on social, I feel like you don't see that. And so I
Yeah.
love that you shared so much of what you get to do, because it feels like that's just the work that you feel called to do in that way, and you don't have to showcase it, and
Yeah.
there's beautiful opportunities of the things that we do get to share with the world. But I think it's even so special that you're doing that, and like I had no idea, and here
Mm-hmm.
you are like healing people, able to like physically lay hands on these patients, and
Mm-hmm. I
it's
be
just,
praying for people at the hospital, girl.
girl, I would want to come to you if I ever get hurt. Okay. So let's just note that right there. The other thing that I did want you to touch on too, though, is talking to calligraphers of color, right? Is that
Mm-hmm.
yes? Okay. So I just feel like as I was typing this question too, I was like, man, not only in the hospital medical field does she do this, but you're doing this feeling safe in a
Mm.
whole other way in what you've created. So can you just speak to that quickly too?
Yeah. So, for those of you that don't know, Calligraphers of Color is an online community that I founded in July of 2019. And pretty much what we do is we just highlight and provide resources and community for like minorities within the calligraphy space. When I learned calligraphy, I took a workshop when I was in PT school, just like as a way to de-stress from demands of a doctorate program. So it was
Literally.
my self-care. Like I just wanted to do, it was a creative outlet for me. But like all of the resources that I learned from were not from people that looked like me. And so I remember this in, a few years ago when I founded the group. I was standing in my kitchen, and I looked at my husband and I was like, I know I am not the only Black calligrapher, but I cannot find anybody. Like, where are we? Like,
Come on.
there's no notable like Black calligraphy instructors. I haven't found a single book written by like a Black calligrapher, or like a person of color. And so I was just like, you know what? Like I searched on social media like for hashtag Black calligraphers or hashtag calligraphers of color. Like if I were to Google like Black calligrapher, it would just be like calligraphy in black and white.
Ah, like the ink.
Yes.
Oh
And
my
I was
gosh.
like, come on now, like we have to be out here. So I founded the group. I just made the Instagram page that day standing in my kitchen, because I was like, there has to be more.
Mm,
Um, and long story short, the people have found us
come
on
on.
social media. Our page grew from like 500 followers to like over 14,000.
Wow.
And we have a like private group on Facebook where anyone's welcome to join if they're interested in calligraphy. But it's really to just allow people to see the representation and how diverse it could be and should be.
Yeah.
And we just like ask questions, share resources, and things like that. So I think providing that safe space for people to see themselves represented is important, really, for any field. But it's amazing to me, like when people find the group, they're like, I have been looking for something like this for a long time. Or like my
Oh,
favorite that I get all the time is like, I feel like I found my people. And it's just like, that just touches my heart every time,
for
you know?
sure.
So,
Yeah. It reminds me so much too of the question that we asked when we were sitting in the lobby with Erin, and she had asked, what breaks your heart? And I
mm,
think that that's so beautiful that you found something that broke your heart.
yeah,
Essentially, you're like, man, I
yeah,
don't see anyone with colored hands in this space. Like, that's a
yes,
problem. We got to fix
yeah,
that, you know?
yeah, we gotta fix
We
it.
gotta fix that. In the same way too, I feel I resonate tons with that because I'm like, man, I don't see any Filipinos on stages. I don't see
Hmm.
Filipinos speaking. Like, we gotta fix that, you know?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
that same idea of like, man, that very thing that breaks your heart, if you're willing, you gotta be willing. If you're willing to answer that call where God's like, hey, hey,
hmm,
I'm calling you down. I need you to take action in this area because I'm telling you,
yes,
there are people that you are going to help on the other side. Like,
yeah,
you did that so beautifully, where you said, you know what, I see the gap, it breaks my heart, and I'm taking action and I'm going to do
hmm,
something about it. And now
yeah,
for over 14,000 people feel more seen, you
yeah,
know, like
yeah,
that's just incredible. And
yeah.
I'm going to gas you up for 0.5 seconds because you're so humble and I love it so much. But I'm like,
Oh,
y'all have no idea, like the work that she gets to do. I know that you were like, dang, she's like such an awesome doctor. Yeah, that's one thing. The other thing is that she has
oh,
been able to work with such incredible brands like Louis Vuitton, Joe Malone. I could probably go on for days, but check out her Instagram after this. I'm telling you, you're going to be like,
oh.
where has she been all my life? Because that's how I feel at least.
Thank you, Cece.
You're
Yeah,
welcome, girl.
it's been a blessing. Like I feel like I don't like all of it. Not that it just kind of happened. Like I didn't grow up talking about, oh, I want to be a calligrapher for brands. Like it's just kind of the thing that falls into your lap, I guess. But it's like when you're doing something that you're passionate about, and when you do it well, like people notice it, and so it's just
Yeah.
amazing the opportunities that have come my way. But what I did want to say, you were talking about like for the person who sees a need or like a gap that needs to be filled, sometimes you have to create your own table.
Mm,
And it doesn't have to be, especially like, well, with our group calligraphers of color, it's not a table to exclude those that didn't accept us before, but it's just to invite those who may have felt like not heard or not seen in the past, and just saying like there is a space for you and we are creating it together. So
so
if
good.
you're that person who sees a need that needs to be met, um you do it. Like
Come
you
on.
get it done.
Come
Make the
on.
group, start the business, start the podcast, the blog, like whatever it is that God keeps like pulling and tugging at your heart to do, that you need to be doing.
Yep.
Just get it done.
Just get
You
it
can do it.
done. That's so
And
good.
it doesn't have to be perfect. Like you'll figure out stuff as you go.
Yeah, yeah. It reminds me so much to everything that you just shared of like, I forget the exact quote, but how God could do so much more with your yes than you could ever like think that you could do, like
Yeah.
he just can do so much more with your simple yes. And I think that's when the next door opens and the next door, and then you find yourself in a position where you're like, am I doing all of this right now? And
Yeah.
you just kept saying yes. And so I think that's what
Yes.
it is too. You don't need to know the whole thing. Just say yes to what
Yeah.
you know he's calling you to do right now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
good.
That's good.
All right. Y'all know how much we love tactical advice around here. And so I just think there's so much power in being fired up, one, like making sure you're plugging into things that make you more on fire, but then two, exactly what we're talking about, taking action. What are those things that you can take action on? So I just keep thinking about the person who's listening who just feels like their world is pure chaos right now. Like they
Mm,
just don't know how to get out of that season that we were talking about. Amanda,
yeah.
what would be your best advice for our sister or our brother who's reaching to find more peace in their own life?
Yeah. The biggest thing for me that I recommend others to do and what I do myself when I'm in like a season of chaos and overwhelm, first is to unplug.
Mm,
Um, there is a lot of information, a lot of noise, a lot of distraction that is coming at us 24/7 all the time that we're constantly being fed. And one, our brains are not meant for that.
so
The
real.
Bible talks about like to be still, and to make space and time for rest. And we just are in such a fast-paced society. So the first thing for me is to unplug. So whether it's social media, TV, the news, we're just so connected all the time, and sometimes you got to pull that plug. I'm not saying get out of community, but like unplug from the distraction and all the unnecessary noise, external sources that don't really bring us peace.
Totally.
Other thing is to like slow down and look at your current situation and assess like what is going on in my life right now that can be changed or modified. Like, what all am I carrying on my plate? Am I carrying things that I put there that aren't supposed to be there right now? Am I doing too much? And like, what or who do I need to let go of?
Mm,
There's this book that I love. It's called Essentialism, um,
yes.
by Greg McCowan or something like that. But I that book centers me every time because it talks about like letting go of like the unnecessary and only focusing on what's absolutely essential.
Yeah.
And so like if I'm doing all these things that are not, necessary for my current situation or position or job, then I'm putting more on my plate than ever was supposed to be.
Come on.
So just focusing on one thing at a time, taking a good assessment of your life and like pinpointing what am I doing, who's in my circle, what's going on that does not need to be there so that you can focus on one thing at a time.
That's good advice. Y'all run with that. That's good advice right there. Amanda, I asked the same question to every guest that's on That's Joy. And I just love hearing people's responses. So, what does joy mean to you?
Whew, I like this question. I feel like joy is almost like a mindset. It's like internal. It comes from within, and it goes back to like what are you feeding yourself to. But I feel like joy is not necessarily dependent on your circumstances. It's being content and accepting of like where you are in life and being grateful for that season. And I know that every situation isn't ideal, or like in our control, but there are a lot of things that we can, for the most point, be intentional about choosing joy with or for. So yeah, that's what joy means to
Come
me.
on. I love that because there's like four different parts of what you just shared there that I have made like single episodes on because I think it
Mm,
leaves so much about what that means. Like joy is that, it isn't our
yeah,
circumstances that are external, but it's internal. And
yeah.
the more and more, and you talking about it being a mindset, the more and more that we're just intentional about remembering that it's
Hmm.
already all right here,
Yeah,
that's when you get to tap in and use it and live it and breathe it. It becomes
yes,
just like who you are, not what's happening around you. And I think that's
exactly.
really good. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay,
Yeah.
now our people are fired up. They love Amanda just as much as Cece does. Maybe that's a lot.
Oh,
But we need to know, how in the heck can we show up for you? I saw you post on Instagram stories. You got workshops coming. Will you just share that? Because we got some creative girlies out here that they want to plug
yeah.
into.
Yeah. So I guess the best way to stay connected with me is on Instagram. That's what I'm on the most. I take seasons on and off of it, but my Instagram is Amanda Reid Designs. But I do teach workshops, like Cece said. I love hosting like these wonderful workshop experiences, and I always post those on my website at amandareiddesigns.com whenever I have something upcoming. Um, Something very exciting is that I'm going to be launching a modern calligraphy course. So for
Yeah, you
people
are.
who, for people who, just want to learn the art of calligraphy, it's a very like relaxing form of self-care. It's a slow and intentional practice. So people who want to learn that may not be able to join one of my workshops live in the Austin area can learn with me online. So that'll be coming out soon.
Sweet. We can't wait to support you in all the ways. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for being here. I know that you bless many, and I just appreciate you so much.
Yay. Thank you, Cece, for having me.
Okay, can we just give it up for our girl Amanda? I mean, come on. She is just full of so much wisdom and so much heart and passion and peace and joy. And it just feels like the greatest gift to be able to share her voice with you guys. So if you loved any part of today's episode, I want to know what that is. Like, is there a certain part of the episode where you're like, that, more of that? Will you shoot me a text? You can actually personally text me at 615-813-4813 and let me know what your thoughts are. And you can follow me on social at CCALBONERO on Instagram and on TikTok. You can follow That's Joy the podcast on both of those platforms too. And friends, like I say in every episode, if you have yet to subscribe, rate, or leave a review, what are you doing? When you subscribe, you'll get alerts on every new episode when it drops. And then when you rate and review, you quite literally give me a hug from afar. It goes far beyond what you will be able to see. And I'm just so grateful for every single rating and review. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Friends, I'll never leave an episode without saying, if you have even the smallest desire to meet the creator of the universe, or if you've already been saved but you aren't truly free, I want to invite you to sit at the table of plenty with me and so many others. I'm telling you, there's an abundance here. There is an overflow here, and there is so much joy to be had here. I'm telling you, God's for you. He's never been against you. All you have to do is invite him into your heart right now. He's waiting for you. He wants to meet with you. And friend, I am so proud of you. If you just made this decision, I'd love to know you. Shoot me a text to the number in the show notes so I could be praying for you. I love you and God loves you. And until next time, I'll chat with y'all next time. Thank you so much for being here.